water. I got water right here, so you can just grab the bottle. There's, grab that. And after all that, I rearranged my papers wrong again. Hey. Hi. Have you started already? Not yet.
We are live, though.
Since this is for you. We're going to wait till you're ready. Is there anything we do to help you get set up there?
They're like me in 5 minutes.
And when I sent the documents to Emily,
You're rude because you know
Let me get
do you realize we're not even a year old yet? Like,
Hi, Bailey.
This is not even a year old.
When's our birthday?
Next week.
Oh, I need to.
I gotta say, if somebody told me a year ago this would be what we'd be doing. I'm not sure I would have had the courage to do that. That art is in the picture.
Oh.
Oh, are you watching what she's recording right now?
Oh, that's weird.
So I need someone to call River College and reserve a larger room, like 2 rooms, whatever that cost might be for our trauma workshop. Thank you, I appreciate that. Do not let me forget to announce that.
2 rooms or a larger?
Well, so it should be one of the larger rooms.
That's what I was thinking.
How many
Because you're-
Just in the actual conference.
Otherwise,
How
you're
many
bouncing
people?
back and
That would
forth.
help.
Well, and that's just it, we're not sure, but we think we might get 25. but we
Right,
might get
over
one.
20 is more than one.
Will the larger room accommodate the over 20, but
Yes.
fewer than, okay. Do you know what?
Because we get a smaller room, right?
We have a small room.
Okay, if we need to go up in size, we can go up in size for that. We just want a lot of people to benefit from this.
Yeah, I think that one of the larger rooms holds like 60 or something.
Okay, we always do good there.
Plenty of space. Is that the one that's $120?
I think so, yeah.
We will fundraise for that. 'Cause this is important.
I need to find this video and tag me. No, mine's over here. Yeah, we are.
Just waiting for a few more people to get situated, then we'll begin shortly.
Alrighty. Oh, that's you watching. You just turned around. That's you. Technology is amazing.
It really is. Sometimes it is the only equalizing force.
When I was in school, we didn't even have cell phones.
Okay, does everybody have their part of the part they're going to read? Okay. I do hope once we, as soon as we have the room secured, we will put up a public event for the trauma workshop. And then ask everyone to share it to their wall, and then we're gonna do a press release this weekend, and we'll get that out right away, and hoping to help people sign up, so. I didn't look at our poll recently, but so far it's still unanimous for how to answer that question. Imagine, do you remember where we were a few months ago?
Uh-huh.
Now we're unanimous. In the group. I'm referencing, I don't want to say it out loud, but it's in our group, in our organizing group. There's a question in there that we asked our members. And,
Thank you, I'm sorry.
no problem. Is the lighting okay?
Yeah.
Not too much sunlight to worry about
I
today.
know, right? Not at all.
Unlike every other thing.
Okay, let's see.
It seems like we have to have our press conferences when we have terrible weather. What is that? And our protests too. Once the
Bad
weather's
news,
just-
bad weather.
There you go.
Right.
Together.
Goes together.
And is your sound meter okay if I stand like this?
Oh, yeah, you're fine, yeah.
Spencer, you catching this? I called you Spencer.
Yeah, it's all right. All the people do.
Oh, I know, but leadership or mistakes 101, right? So
That's all right, that's all
apologies. All right, we all set?
Yes.
Okay, everybody, let's do this. Greetings. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Heather McMeekin, and I'm the president of the Democratic Women of McDonough County. We are here today, first and foremost, to celebrate a true hero in our community who, despite the odds, managed to locate and bring home his developmentally disabled brother in the middle of winter, in spite of being turned away repeatedly by the Macomb police, who had put the disabled man in harm's way in the first place. This hero's courage, determination, and love brought his brother home, and we wish to honor him. Tamar Walker, on behalf of the Democratic Women of McDonough County, I'd like to tell you thank you for your actions. Without your efforts, as we all know, this situation could have ended in tragedy. You are to be commended, and you will always have a friend in our organization. Furthermore, I'd like to apologize to you, your brother, your family, for what this community put you through, and to show you that we mean business when we say we are about allyship first and about racial justice in action. That is why we are here today. We are going to be watching for any signs of retaliation against these brothers by any members of the Macomb community, and we are in contact with them. So let's get underway. Tamar's efforts to save his brother wouldn't have been necessary without the bizarre actions of the Macomb Police Department in their creation of this emergency, their failure to respond, their ever-shifting explanations, and truly abhorrent lack of any apparent regard for the safety and health and dignity of either of these community members. We wish to state clearly that Tamar wanted to acknowledge that he has Macomb police officers who have treated him and his brother well over the years, and we wish to acknowledge that as well. We understand that the failures of leadership in no way reflect poorly on the views of all the good officers in that department. We know we have good officers here. Our position is that they are in need of good leadership and accountability for officers who do wrong or make mistakes. And those in their department who don't deserve to wear the mantle of authority and power given to them by the tax-paying citizens of this community need to be investigated, and if wrongdoing is found, they need to be removed. I want to give a content warning here for all people watching at this time to warn them that the information we will be discussing is quite upsetting and is likely to be re-traumatizing for many members of our Black, Hispanic, Latino, Native American community, those with loved ones with disabilities, those who have had negative experiences with police and public officials, and those with compassion and concern for human beings. Please take care when viewing this press conference, and if it gets to be too much, we encourage you to take good self-care and turn it off as needed. According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, law enforcement officers and other officials, like judges and prosecutors, have been given tremendous power by local, state, and federal government agencies, authority they must have to ensure the law, enforce the law, and ensure justice in our country. These powers include the authority to detain and arrest suspects, to search and seize property, to bring criminal charges, to make rulings in court, and to use deadly force in certain situations. Preventing abuse of this authority, however, is equally necessary to the health of our nation's democracy. That's why it's a federal crime for anyone acting under color of law to willfully deprive or conspire to deprive a person of a right protected by the Constitution or U.S. law. Color of law simply means the person is using authority given to him or her by a local, state, or federal government agency. And further, to quote the Federal Bureau of Investigations, deprivation of medical care. Individuals in custody have a right to medical treatment for serious medical needs. An official acting under color of law who recognizes the serious medical need but knowingly and willfully denies or prevents access to medical care may have committed a federal color of law violation. Failure to keep from harm. The public counts on its law enforcement officials to protect local communities. If it's shown that an official willfully failed to keep an individual from harm, that official could be in violation of the federal color of law statute. And we're adding hashtags to this by missing by design and also civil rights. And we have a source code in this that has gone out to all of our news agencies that we sent this press conference documents to, and all of these will be on our website this evening. Because Mayor Inman refuses to work with our organization, including our Racial Justice Coalition, it has become clear to us that our city leadership isn't interested in taking actual actions to dismantle the many structural injustices in our local government, which permit racism and bigotry to harm our community members and threaten this town's very economic survival. Indeed, Mayor Inman knew we were bringing this case to light last week when he called for that statement signing, proclaiming his concern for diversity and inclusion. And we appreciate that several people who signed that document are forthright and have good intentions, such as WIU's President Abraham, Reverend Kelly Ingersoll, Executive Director Merritt, as they have demonstrated through their actions in the community that they stand for what is right. Yet we have some questions. What members of the Black and Hispanic, Latino, Native American communities were invited to help write that statement, to sign it? Who were invited and why? Why weren't members of our Racial Justice Coalition even informed about it? We question whether or not members of our Black community were even involved in the writing of the statement. Who wrote that? And then to show up and witness that signing? If Mayor Inman is truly serious about these issues, why has he been silent on this case, waiting for journalists and us to come to him? Now we're going to begin with the reading of the questions. And the first one is, what policies, well, I'm sorry, I need to actually read the narrative. And questions for Mayor Inman, City Administrator Scott Coker, City Council members R.E. Macomb, Police Department's role in the disappearance of a disabled, vulnerable Black man in our community. I want to add a note. Based upon the interviews that we have conducted and input from multiple sources in our city, we believe the following to be accurate based upon our understanding at this time. We are volunteers. We are professional investigators. We represent members of our organization and the people in our community who have brought these issues to us. And we are doing our best to ensure that they feel safe and heard and to bring what they are telling us to light, because we find their statements to be credible and very concerning. At this point, we believe the overall picture of this situation emerging from these prelim findings is of sufficient concern to warrant a demand for action, and that is why we're here today. This is the situation, as referenced on KHQA's website and in the news story they broke last night. A mentally disabled, traumatized local Black man with intellectual challenges went missing a few weeks ago in our community, in Winter. He and his brother live here. He has a legal guardian who is his brother, who is also Black. They are both well known to all members of the Macomb Police Department, whatever the chief may have said. The Macomb Police Department has had regular contact with both of them. Indeed, the guardian brother has been harassed, according to by one of the members or multiple members of our Macomb Police Department. He didn't tell us that. Many of our members who work in agencies, our white members who work in agencies throughout this community, are the ones who brought that to our attention. The guardian brother, worried and desperate to find him, tried to make a report about his missing brother at the police station. They refused to help him, claiming that since his brother was an adult, they couldn't take a report. The brother kept trying to locate him on his own without any police assistance. More days passed, his desperation grew. The brother asked yet another police officer he ran into to take a report, and he refused as well. But one of the police officers told the brother that another officer had given his brother a one-way ticket to Chicago. And there was a third-party witness to that police officer's statement, which we are also not going to release that name for their protection. The brother continued his search without any further assistance or even support from the Macomb Police Department, and his mother, who is facing health challenges, was trying to help from afar. And honestly, it's despicable that was what they were having to do on their own. A few days later, the police officer then changed his story and said, oh, they hadn't given him a ticket after all and sent him away. Frantic and traumatized, the brother, again, who is his legal guardian, and the police all knew it and know it, because the police officers helped him become the guardian. They're the ones who helped Tamar fill out the paperwork and file it. So their claim that they didn't know is not accurate, does not fit the facts. This brother received aid from a professional health provider who he went to in his distress, who helped him go to the police station and get a report filed when they finally filed him as missing and endangered. But the Macomb PD, when they filed it, neglected to mention in that report that the brother was missing because they had chosen to give him a one-way ticket to a city where he has nobody to help him. This man functions, I mean, when I say he's developmentally disabled, he often functions with the understanding of the world as a child. The Chicago police then located him sitting on a stoop with frostbitten feet in the same clothes he had left Macomb with via the Macomb police 2 weeks prior. And we don't yet know what all transpired other than that. He was harmed by the elements, harmed by the lack of support, re-traumatized, his family re-traumatized. The brother not only wasn't offered any assistance nor apology from the police, nor the mayor, nor City Hall, he had to drive up and get his brother himself and bring him back to this home community at his own expense with no assistance, no support from the Macomb police, who had created this entire situation in the first place through their own actions and inactions. When we, the Democratic women of McDonough County, became aware of this situation through our members who first saw the missing police report, we began to ask our members to ask friends and family what they knew. Very quickly, a very disturbing and upsetting picture emerged. We began asking questions of the police. The police responded with an article in the paper reminding people to register in a national database to assist with location services, but completely ignored the fact that this man suffered harm. He could have died. He was missing and they didn't know he wasn't dead when they refused to help his brother. Let me state that again. The police had no idea if this man was living or dead when they repeatedly refused to help his brother look for him. But they knew he was missing because they made him go missing by giving him a ticket he shouldn't have been given. We wish to know. I'm sorry, I need to take a moment. There's a practice here so-called leaders in our community have used in the past to get rid of persons they deemed unwanted and or unwelcome in this community. Basically, it works like this. The police or one of their agents gives a person a one-way bus or train ticket to anywhere they want to go to encourage them to leave our community and not return. I know this is true because when I was a paramedic and EMS instructor in this community, I was taught this practice by the police and by the ER staff and by and the mayor then, and several leaders in this community. At that time, I was in my early 20s, and I'll admit, I thought it was odd, but I just accepted what I was told. They made it sound like it was a good thing. I had no idea that was still going on, and nor did I have any idea that they leveraged it against people who actually live in this community. So when our members came back and said, why would the police give him a ticket? That's why I knew why they would have done that. Because I've witnessed people being sent out of this community similarly, decades ago. And I checked with some of my former students, and they confirmed that that is still a practice that continues today. In lieu of exculpatory evidence or proper public acknowledgement of a mistake, we think this is likely what happened here. It is the only lens through which the facts, as we understand them, appear to make sense. When the police officers knew they had sent a person out of this community who had a legal guardian, instead of doing the right thing, they closed ranks and tried to lay the groundwork for blaming the victims or ignoring the danger and harm they caused. Because of the way this situation has played out and apparent lack of remorse nor even acknowledgement of harm done, the Democratic women of McDonough County call for Macomb Police Chief Barker to immediately step down or be removed by the man who appointed him, Mayor Mike Inman, who claims to be someone who cares about diversity and inclusion and justice in this community. We call for an investigation to be launched by the McDonough County State's Attorney, Matt Wakala. We call for an explanation with full apology be read into the public record at a city council meeting so that this never happens again. We demand written answers for our questions, of which we'll be reading them shortly, from Mayor Inman and the Macomb Police Department. Finally, we want a commitment from Mayor Inman, the City Council, that the one-way ticket program is ended immediately, never to return to this community ever again. I'm going to bring up our Vice President, Verna Perkins, who's going to read our first questions. And these first questions are going to be about the one-way ticket to Chicago, which we are hashtagging missing by design. Come on up, Verna. I might just turn that up a little bit. And put it down if you need to.
Okay. In reference to the one-way ticket to Chicago issue, a mentally disabled, impoverished black man was given a one-way ticket to Chicago without his family being informed. How many of these one-way tickets are given out by the police or any Macomb government officials or public servants in 2019 or in 2018? And are all the city council members informed of each of these cases? Which officer gave him a ticket? Why? What circumstances led the officer to believe that was the action to take? What funds were used? Where can the public see these funds being used in this manner? What policies, processes, and procedures were followed in the determination that this disabled man should be given a ticket to a city in which there was no one to watch out for him? What attempts were made to contact him to services at the destination? What attempts were made to contact his legal guardian? What attempts were made to connect him to agencies where he could receive help? Was he given sufficient funds to get a CTA ticket also to get where he could receive help or just to get to Union Station? What follow-up was done to ensure his safety, to inform his family and his caretaker? What agencies participate in this formally or informally? Who are the contact persons? What paperwork is filled out? What metrics are used in the decision process for who gets these offers? Why did this mentally disabled poor black man with a legal guardian in the city, both of whom are well known to the police, get offered a ticket instead of a ride home to his caregiver's residence? Okay, regarding the police officer who gave the brother the one-way ticket to Chicago. How did he come across the man in town? Why didn't he realize the man is obviously developmentally disabled, as is quite apparent even to those with no training? What was his motivation for purchasing and giving him a ticket to Chicago? Why didn't he tell the guardian? Why didn't he apologize? Why didn't the chief and the mayor make him apologize? What training has he had? That's it?
What's this week? Someday I'm gonna donate an extension cord. The next person I'm gonna bring up is Dr. Merrill Cole.
Okay, to continue the questions, in regard to the police's changing story of the ticket, first they admitted it exists, then they changed their story, saying it didn't happen. They have no record of it, and MCAT has no record of it. Now suddenly, they have a receipt for it, and gave yet another nonsensical story claiming that MPD hands out one-way tickets to Chicago to black men who claim they don't have housing. And then, regarding the failure to help the family file a missing persons report. The issue is, once the guardian realized the brother was gone, he tried to get a missing persons report filed with the Macomb police and was turned away. Are missing person reports optional for the police agency? Why wasn't he told at that time his brother was missing? Because the police had sent him out of this community. Why did yet another officer refuse to help him file a missing persons report? Why did it require the intervention of a working professional in this community before the police could finally file a missing persons report? Once it was filed, why didn't the department hold a press conference with an apology explaining what they did and how they would ensure it would never happen again? And regarding the failure to assist the brothers and provide restorative justice. The issue is, after the missing man was discovered, the Macomb police refused to take any responsibility for his absence, refused to help bring him back, failed to notify the public that their actions caused trauma, physical neglect, and injury to the victim, which could have cost him his life. Why no acknowledgement of the mistake once the caregiver made it known the man was missing from the community? Where is the acknowledgement of wrongdoing? Where is the apology? Why didn't the police officers give accurate information in the missing persons report to other departments? Why was the family given no help in bringing the man home? Why were there no offers of assistance for the harm done? And why a press release now only about the database, yet no mention of this case?
Thanks, Marilyn. In the course of investigating this troubling situation, we received many complaints about long-term harassment of black people in this community by some Macomb police officers. One name that several white community members who are staffers in multiple agencies reported as being an officer that regularly tries to get black people in trouble with their places of employment and housing is Officer Lindsay May. The accounts are beyond upsetting. We are prepared to put witnesses in contact with investigators to see if civil and human rights violations have occurred, and we strongly believe they have, or at least that there's enough to warrant an investigation. And we believe there's good evidence that an investigation will yield very disturbing information about the behavior of some of our officers. The first affidavit that's going to be read will be from Candace Whitman.
Hi, my name is Candace Whitman. I'm going to be reading this affidavit on behalf of a community member, and then I will afterwards share some of my thoughts regarding the case of the man who was sent to Chicago. Affidavit. This raw, unfiltered narrative is from a local Macomb black resident who grew up here in Macomb and suffered repeated trauma from Macomb police, especially Officer Lindsay May, by the long-term harassment of her parents in our community. And a note from the Democratic Women of Medina County: we have received several credible similar reports describing similar patterns of harassment by Officer Lindsay May. Did you read this already?
I may have. I'm sorry, I may have double paced. No, that's different. Go ahead.
Okay. Officer Lindsay May against black people, especially black men in our community. These reports are verified by some white allies working in the community who are fearful of being targeted, but they were able to confirm the pattern, severity, and pervasiveness of this behavior from the Macomb police officers which is why we demand this harassment end, the department be investigated, and especially that Lindsay May be taken off the streets pending the outcome of an investigation into his arriving at workplaces to try to get Black people in trouble with their employers. And this is the affidavit. I am a Black member of Macomb, Illinois, who has been living here on and off for many years. I have never felt welcomed into this community in my skin, and growing up here has been a traumatic experience with the help of the Macomb Police Department. My family members have had nothing but bad experiences with Lindsay May. He harasses, profiles, intimidates, manipulates, and stalks the people of color in this town. Specifically, he has been constantly harassing my Black parents since the 90s. When my father became free, he got himself a great job and was supporting himself just fine. Lindsay May did not like this and took it upon himself to approach my father's employer and disclose the details of his troubled past in an attempt to disenfranchise this Black man who was simply trying to get back on his feet. I remember being a young child and being absolutely terrified of Lindsay May and the Macomb Police Department because of the harassment and abuse of power they put us through. I understood from a young age that they were corrupt. I remember being a young child and being absolutely, I read that already, sorry. Being pulled over and seeing my mother wrongfully arrested while I was a helpless 5-year-old in the back of the car, unknowing of where my protector was going, was emotionally scarring. It was ritual for them to harass my mother, pull her over, and find any reason they could to bring her to the station and question her about my father. One day, they arrested her when I was with her. I felt so panicked and devastated as they took her out of the vehicle and put handcuffs on her. Needlessly tight, might I add. As I watched her from the inside of the car, tears rolled down my cheeks. "Mommy, Mommy," I would plead, hoping she could hear me and save me. Imagine being so young and seeing your mother torn from you. Your only present guardian and protector is gone, and you are alone in the back of their car. Your adolescent mind races, trying to rationalize and understand what's going on. My thoughts in those moments were, am I ever going to see my mom again? Where are they taking her? Am I going to be taken away? One of the police officers got in my mother's car, which made me panic, but I was so terrified that my cries were silent. I buried my face in my coat to muffle the whimpers that managed to escape my mouth. I thought I was being kidnapped. I was met with no compassion. I saw the cop glance at me through the mirror, but he said not one word to me. He didn't try to explain what was going on, not so much as it's going to be okay. I was clearly distressed and frightened, but my existence was barely acknowledged in the back of that car. No child should ever have to experience or witness such misconduct and abuse of power. But the truth is, many children of color are traumatized by law enforcement, the ones who are supposed to serve and protect. The MPD wanted nothing more but to disenfranchise my Black father, and they didn't care what they had to do or who they had to damage to get there. Even to this day, my anxiety immediately sets off when I see a Macomb police department car, despite knowing I have done nothing wrong. Although their actions were directed at my father and mother, witnessing such abuse and hearing about it as a child traumatized me and instilled me with fear that I feel to this day. It is time to stop allowing Lindsay May and the Macomb Police Department to terrorize the minorities in this community. Okay, so that's the end of the affidavit. This is me speaking from me personally, and in regard to the man who was sent to Chicago. The extreme mistreatment of this man and his family at the hands of the Macomb Police Department is dehumanizing and incredibly harmful. As a mental health therapist specializing in trauma, I'm going to take a moment to speak on how the mistreatment of this individual with a mental illness has most likely caused significant harm to him and his family. The Macomb Police Department's actions throughout this entire situation has almost certainly and undoubtedly been an incredibly traumatic experience for those involved. The impact of this mistreatment will likely cause immense distress and symptoms of trauma for years to come. A person with a known mental illness being sent to a city without resources or connections during the winter in the Midwest is absolutely outrageous. Regardless if this man insisted that he wanted to go to Chicago or not, it was the responsibility of the police to assess the risk involved in their decision to send him.
That's right.
Not only did the police knowingly send a man with mental illness to a city with no resources, but they also refused to acknowledge that what they did in order to fix the situation. Their refusal to help him and his family to find and ensure that he is safe only created more distress. I cannot imagine what it must have been like for him being on the streets of Chicago with no resources in the cold nights of the winter. I cannot imagine what it must have been like for his family to be home, worried to death, having no idea where he was or if he was safe. I cannot imagine what it was like for his mother to not know if he was dead or alive. What I can imagine, however, is the impact this situation has had on them. I can imagine that they must feel incredibly unsafe. I can imagine that they cannot trust the people that are paid to protect. I can imagine that they will never feel safe again and will always be on guard. This kind of trauma is never forgotten. This kind of trauma impacts a person's ability to live their life free of fear. This kind of trauma is the kind of trauma that makes people feel like others have no respect for their humanity. The psychological scars of this will be deep and lasting. And it could have all been prevented if the Macomb police would have done their jobs of serving and protecting. Instead, they caused harm every step of the way. How dare they? How dare they treat this family this way? How dare they refuse to acknowledge their wrongdoing? The leadership of this police department is responsible for this. Chief Barker must go. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. For those watching, Candace Whitman is a licensed clinical professional counselor and specializes in trauma. Now I'm going to bring up Vicki McDonald, who's going to read an affidavit from a Black mother.
We have the same last name. She's reading my affidavit.
My name is Vicki McDonald, and I'm reading the affidavit from a Black mother. The day I was arrested for a petty offense in public while with my young child is a day I will never forget. I'm sure she will never forget either. The feeling of being taken away from your children, not knowing when or if you'll see them again, thinking, why is this happening to me and my family? It was traumatic, devastating, embarrassing, emotional, stressful, and just sad. Since my incident, I've been stalked by MPD officers. Scared to death when one gets behind my car, I immediately grab my phone so I can record any interactions. My kids get nervous and scared. My youngest has gone to the bathroom on herself. When she comes in contact with MPD, it's really sad. I don't feel safe here. I don't feel equal. I don't feel like a human being. I don't feel as confident as I once was years ago before moving to this town. I fear for my children daily. Every minute and second they are out of my sight. I fear that one of my kids will be walking home and be targeted by MPD, or a white person may run him down just because of their skin color, just for walking down the street they so urgently don't want us to occupy. I suffer from anxiety, depression, and high stress levels since living here. I've had to seek counseling for my kids and I, due to past interactions with MPD and the mayor and just the people in this town. My children have been bullied at school, jumped on, beat, kicked, punched, you name it, to the point where MPD brought my child to me because of being jumped at school. No actions were taken, just brought home to me. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to explain to your young black child that they may be treated differently because of the color of their skin and the texture of their hair? It hurts to try to explain to your child to be aware it is to be alive, and because you are black, you will be treated differently. It hurts. In my decades of life, I have never faced racism or discrimination of any kind till I moved to Macomb, Illinois. This town saddens me, keeps my stress levels high, and my confidence low. MPD is a disgrace and beyond unprofessional, and they abuse their power whenever they see fit. I'm appalled that there are numerous encounters with the black community here, and we will not be silenced by fear anymore. I am strong, I am educated, and I will be heard.
We have some questions for Mayor Inman, and I'm bringing up Becky Danner, who's going to ask that for us.
Hi, my name is Becky Danner. In regards to the failures of leadership, why have you not issued an apology to this family? How many people have to be given tickets out of the city under your leadership? How can you expect black people to feel safe in this city, given your police department's leadership would have let this man die? They didn't know he wasn't dead already when they refused to help his brother find him. How can you allow your police department's leadership to behave with such callousness, unprofessionalism, and indifference to this family's suffering? What assurances do we have that any of our developmentally disabled adults in our community are safe from the police officers doing the same thing to them and their loved ones? What specific actions will you take to ensure this situation never, ever happens again? How does this align with the recently signed statement against discrimination? How would you be okay with your police department treating a member of your family in this same way? Would you be silent if the missing person had been white? Then I have something of my own that I want to read that I put together after hearing this. So again, I'm Becky Danner, and as a former social worker, mother of 3, and community member, I am heavy with emotion since hearing of the callousness of our city leaders. Once I learned the horror of the Macomb Police Department busing and using the train system to rid this town of who they deem undesirable by using a one-way ticket out with zero search for family members first, I was mortified. Just imagine, if you can, wrap your mind around it. You're scared, alone, confused, and maybe disabled. A police officer approaches you and seems friendly and helpful. offering you a free ticket to wherever you want to go. Possibly, in this moment, it seems like the right thing to do. With no one else to speak to you about your options, you aren't referred to a mental health professional or a hospital or a doctor or a friend, because this nice police officer needs an answer right now. You may be trying to escape the desperate feelings you're having, or maybe you're disoriented and confused without any guidance to take that one-way ticket out. Then it happens. You're bussed out. You're likely scared, all alone, with nowhere to go. You have no money, no hope, no extra clothing, in the winter, might I add, or anything to prepare you for a whole new life in a strange town. Let's also not forget that your mental abilities require a caretaker that you haven't even spoken with since before being sent away. Now, let's fast forward 2 weeks later. Your caretaker has been frantically searching for you and trying to report you missing to the police that you are lying, and they are lying to him. All this is unbeknownst to you as you have been suffering out in the streets of Chicago, frostbitten, hungry, and likely scared. With his tireless efforts, your brother locates you, and without the aid of your local Macomb Police Department, he drives up and he gets you himself. You're traumatized, you're cold, you're scared, you're hungry and disoriented. But finally, you feel home again in your brother's arms. Speaking of this poor individual's recovery, it's apparent that this will require ongoing therapy for the entire family. Their story is horrific. Our city, Macomb, Illinois, they did this to this family, knowingly. They knew the caretaker, they knew of him, they knew of his brother with childlike disabilities. These people were disrespected, lied to, ignored, shamed, invalidated, and put at risk of harm intentionally. These men, part of our community, were already trauma survivors that were knowingly harmed by our city, by our police. And now our officials are claiming these men are liars, saying more harmful things about them. Again, as a former social worker, as a mom of 3, and as a Macomb community member, I say, how dare you, Macomb Police Department? How dare you, Chief Barker? How dare you, city officials? I say Chief Barker must go, and anyone else that helped make this atrocious decision of excising people from their hometowns, you can go too. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Because it has become clear to us that we cannot trust the Macomb Police leadership to treat all members of our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, and in attending with their full human and civil rights, which they are obligated to do, we are announcing the following actions we are taking as an organization to help the people in our community who feel unheard by those in this city hall and the Macomb Police Department. We are announcing we will help any of our Black, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, or international community members who wish to escape this community by helping them with their resumes. And we are happy to use our network of people to help them connect with services in whatever community they wish to move at, to find safe people to help them safely escape here. A form will be placed on our website to request such assistance. We will work with them one-on-one and in small groups behind the scenes. It's time to help those who wish to leave to do so. But we're not going to give up fighting for those who can't leave, have family here, or want to make it better. So we're going to be holding free 4-hour training for all community members who wish to learn about trauma and help others heal from it. And we highly encourage the members of the Macomb Police Department who do not understand trauma and the manifestations of it in members of our community to attend this workshop. under which they will be expected to be silent and learn. It's going to be Sunday, February 2nd, 2020, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at a location soon to be announced on our website. We will also be holding that training 4 times a year until our community is well versed in trauma, resilience, healing, how to support each other, and how to hold us all accountable for making sure we are all taking care of each other emotionally. We're also announcing a town hall in this room on racial justice and town hall relations, town gown relations, Thursday night, January 30th, from 6 to 8 p.m. here in City Hall, where our members will begin discussing the various structures enabling racism and disparity in our community to remain unchecked and harmful to our most marginalized and disenfranchised community members. We are not going to wait for other people to create spaces where white people feel comfortable discussing their racism. We are white people who know we must discuss the racism in this community. It threatens everyone, but it harms black people right now. And it's great that there are white people who think we should only praise in public. It's great that there are white people saying that the leaders of this community have our backs. What do they mean by us? Because our members, we do not feel, and I'm speaking as our president now, our members have clearly stated that we do not feel the Macomb Police leadership and the City Hall leadership has our backs. Not at all on protecting people. Because we have a growing body of compelling evidence that members of our community are threatened with retaliation should they wish to file complaints against the Macomb Police Department, including threats of loss of their children or loss of their job or loss of their housing or being reported to HUD, which we have reports from people who have worked in the past in housing who have confirmed that there are certain police officers who have worked with certain people in charge at housing to harass black people in housing. And that's another leg of this investigation. We'll be having another press conference about that. We're just still getting the fact-finding behind that. But because of this growing, compelling body of evidence, we are placing a form up on our website so that all community members may submit their complaints to us about maltreatment from any members of the police or any community leaders who should be doing better. While we can't guarantee that we'll be able to do much about a lot of the complaints, we can guarantee they will not go unheard in this community, and our members will know what's happening, and that will help inform our actions over the next 2 years. We wish to connect them to aid and supportive services as much as possible. And at this point, we're going to reiterate our initial asks of the mayor almost 2 months ago. And we asked for a written response, and the mayor said we'd get one. Where is it, Mayor? Where's our written response? We're calling for an investigation in the Macomb Police Department. We want the city to issue a proclamation. The mayor needs to issue a proclamation, a statement that white people write and mostly white people sign, leaving out black community members and not even telling them it's going to be signed, not inviting them to be a part of it, is not the same thing as a mayoral proclamation that is a legally binding document, that is a historical narrative of the values we wish to have as this community. The mayor has refused repeatedly. We have sent so many people to ask for this. He will not do it. And the community here needs to ask why. We encourage in that proclamation that they condemn all acts of bigotry and intolerance, and we call on all city and county boards, commissions, and committees to issue the same or sign on to that proclamation. We encourage all city council members to canvass their wards at least annually so they are regularly, directly informed about the conditions in this city by those they purport to represent. They should provide at least 2 methods of outreach to communicate, educate, and inform this community about the way decisions are made. If they sit on the city council, and to be clear, the one city council member that has been concerned about this and reached out to the family and shared concerns has been Tammy Lee Brown Edwards, a woman, our first black alderwoman at large, who the mayor didn't see fit to include in that statement signing. We wonder why. That's bizarre. That's not right. We still demand that they put up an online reporting form for such concerns to the city website that isn't a generic form that just goes to whoever. People who don't feel safe and don't trust our leadership here need to know where forms are going to go, who's going to see them, and how they're going to be handled, and how they will be protected against retaliation in this city. Because we have strong evidence to turn over about retaliation against people who have tried to submit complaints, people without our privilege. And that is why we are speaking here today. We want the city to actively solicit information from the public about other issues, ensuring a transparent reporting process to help them feel safe when making those reports. Yes, they fixed the link on the Macomb Police Department website, but they instilled the most obstructive process possible for police complaints. So now, if you want to make a complaint against the city police, you have to have internet, go to their website, click on their link, download a form, print it off, fill out your complaint, take it to a notary public, and only then do you get the privilege of getting to state your concerns. That is completely unacceptable. That seems intentionally designed to silence community members, and we insist that they correct this and instead make it where any Macomb City officer who is sworn can take a complaint from any city member at any time, a written complaint, and it shouldn't have to be notarized. That requires privilege, that requires time. That is a way of disenfranchising black, poor, disabled, those without privilege of vehicles, those without internet. Fix that now. We want them to annually solicit data about the public perception regarding the culture and functioning of the leadership and members of the Macomb Police Department. We want an annual report detailing how that information informs police department leadership, hiring, training, advancement, leadership, functioning, and policies. They need to prove that they didn't intentionally try to harm this man, send him out of this community. And their explanations that they've given in the news don't cut it. They just produce way more concern. Watching the police chief's demeanor, it's no big deal. You know, they should have just done this. Really? Chief Barker must go. He is a menace. If he didn't know about this situation, then shame on him. If he knew about it and helped hide it all those weeks, shame on him. Whether he knew or didn't know, the fact he didn't apologize and take responsibility, what kind of leadership is that? Is this how, remember, we had an affidavit last month here in this room read, where we talked about a person witnessing the chief talking about how he believes it's his job to enforce white culture here? I think we have our answer for what that looks like. We want the information on the city website, including a link to a web form for solicitation for feedback from the community, and update the city website listing for the Police and Fire Commission to include dates and times of meetings, contact info for all members, a description of the purpose, scope, and function of that commission, links to all relevant government documents and policies, including links to people's civil rights and human rights. So we know, but we are going to be providing those things on our website while we wait for the city to catch up. List the processes for how to get on the agenda of that meeting. And then the last one, fix the Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Commission. Which we still haven't gotten our answer, that we've been waiting for 6 months on the function of what that committee is supposed to do. Scott Coker has never followed through with any of his promises made to any of our organization's members that he would get us the information. He's had 6 months. That's our affirmative action officer. What's taken so long? Finally, an apology from this community in the form of restorative justice is owed to Tamar, Michonne, and their family. Worse, we call on the chief and everybody who works at City Hall to end their character assassination of these brothers immediately, to leave them alone, and if you retaliate against them, we're going to be right back here talking about it. Tamar is a hero in this community, and many of our members know those brothers and know them as caring, kind forces in this community doing their best to get ahead and follow the laws of the land. They both have been through a tremendous amount of intergenerational trauma and trauma throughout their lives at the hands of white people. And they came to this community, and we did it to them and worse. And all of us should be furious at that. At this point, I will take questions.
I just need clarification. So you said that police have had contact with the brother or before?
Yes, multiple. In fact, one of the police officers...
Elaborate on that? Like you said, they help with guardianship or?
Yes,
okay.
when, because he is a grown man who does struggle with issues, especially when he's upset, as we all do, they realized that Tamar needed some protection. One good officer, who shall remain nameless, and we're hoping that he will stay, helped Tamar fill out the guardianship paperwork so that he could get guardianship to be able to make decisions. And also, that same police officer helped take the brother to Blessing Hospital when he needed help with his medication adjustment. We know there's good officers. They deserve better leadership, and they definitely do not deserve to be considered to be in the same, I don't even know what the word would be, I'm so angry, I'm watching my mouth here, but for whatever this is that the chief and those other officers did, we know good officers who would never behave that way, and we need to get rid of bad leadership, we need to get better training, better transparency, and we need all of our city leaders to be investigated and held accountable for what they knew. In fact, we would suggest the following FOIAs. People should FOIA Officer Lindsay May's communications about these brothers to anybody, including former Housing Director Bill Jacobs. We think any communications between the Macomb Police Department, Mayor Mike Inman, and Bill Jacobs referencing any black members in housing should be FOIA'd as well, because we think there might be some interesting information found. We think FOIA's about who offered this ticket, under what circumstances, and the questions that we have asked. We hope that FOIA's will be filed about all these. We don't know the answers to those, but we don't know the answer. We don't have to know the answer. We're volunteers. We're community members, and these people work for us. And they've forgotten that. And at this point, all of their optics are meaningless because people are being harmed. This man could have died, and it would be our police department's fault. And he was harmed. They all were harmed. And no apology has been forthcoming. What is that? So at this point, we demand better, but we're not waiting on them, because we're going to get to work in this community. And those who wish to join us can follow us through our website and on Facebook. And we believe our black community members when they bring this to us, but I'll tell you what, we have a lot of white community members who already know those facts and validated all of these concerns brought to us today. We have white community members working in many agencies who have told us, who have verified by their understanding the accuracy of what we have presented today, which tells you a lot about this community. We have issues with housing, we have issues with employment, we have issues with the police, we have issues with the educational system, which we'll be having a press conference about that forthcoming this semester. We've been a little busy, right? There's a lot of issues we should be discussing. It shouldn't be talking about how white people can learn how to communicate using nonviolence. That has its merits, but that is not racial justice. We are talking about dismantling systems of oppression that are persistent in this community and have been for generations, that the black members of our community have been asking for help with for decades, and nobody's been helping them. And it is time for us white people who have white privilege in this community to step up and have courage and say, those of you telling us to be silent, those of us, you telling us to trust the leadership, we know we can't trust the leadership because the leadership has hurt our own members and their families and our students and our student mentees. and many of them in front of us, making racist statements and microaggressions and invalidating their pay. So, at this point, we're not here for any more comfortable conversations where they keep journalists out to protect people who don't deserve protecting. At this point, we need journalists to tell this story because we don't have support in this community. They say we're making it up. So we're going to gather affidavits. We're going to keep gathering as much evidence as we need. We're going to keep talking here until eventually things get better. And in the meantime, we're going to show up for those who are hurt as much as we can, offering our support, witness, and comfort, letting them feel heard. And for those who want to escape this community, we believe you, and we cannot honestly say that we should try to be convincing anyone to stay here if they don't have white privilege. And that is something we hope all members of this community hear. The people, the white people who are saying things are fine, I hope every journalist who gets a letter from one of them asks them, how many black community members did you speak with before penning or saying that statement? Because they're not speaking to our friends, they're not speaking to our members, our loved ones, our family members, some of us. This is a very complex problem, and it threatens the economic security of all of us. And at this point, only truth is going to change things, because we do not have real allies willing to sit down. And if you can't even show compassion for a man who thought his brother might be dead over Christmas, I don't know what to do with that. How dare we have people paid by our tax dollars doing this to the most vulnerable members of our community? This is an outrage, and we are done. Any other questions?
Can you also clarify, when you come in contact with Marshawn, what did you, earlier you were saying it's pretty clear that he would need some help. He's mentally disabled. Can you?
I don't wish to do that because he has vulnerabilities that horrible people have exploited in this community, and I don't want him to be put at greater risk. But I will say,
because what I'm trying to get at is, if it was clear to police, why still send him? If you know,
that's our question.
So that's why.
How do they claim not to know? Because
I don't know him, right?
yeah, any of our members would know it within just talking to him for 2 minutes. But to be clear, if the police didn't know, despite the fact that they've had many interactions with this man, have helped him get to a hospital for his issues, have helped his brother fill out the paperwork for guardianship, shame on them. And shame on the chief for not making sure they were all informed. There is no excuse for them not to know, and we don't accept that they didn't know. And that is a story they changed too, because first they were like, well, we don't know what happened. Then, oh, well, one of our people sent him out. And then they're claiming that they were doing it to help him? Who believes that the Macomb police are offering up free tickets to Chicago for any black men who say that they want to leave here? Who believes that? Not me. That is offensive. To offer that as an explanation, that's outrageous that a police chief would even state that, much less assume any of us were dumb enough to believe it.
Can I elaborate for him? Marshawn is a regular at my job where I work. You can immediately tell that he is mentally disabled.
Okay.
He is an adult. He's an older adult. And he also has gray hair, so you can tell he's older, but you can definitely see within 5 minutes of the conversation that he is mentally delayed. He is a very nice man. I give him coffee. I conversate with him. They have called me into work where they have had incidents where they couldn't get him to leave because he was having an episode. I've come in on my day off and I have escorted Marshawn home. I'm not fearful of him. I'm not afraid of him. I've even talked to him on my bad days, and he's understood and conversated with me back. He's not a bad person. He's not a bad guy. And he's not violent. And he definitely didn't deserve any of that. So, yeah, that's what I know about him.
And that's what our community members all relate, and those of us who have had contact with him. It is, and his needs are anyone's needs when they're upset. Basic mental health first aid. Let's sit down and talk it out. Why did that happen?
My thing is, I know his brother really well, so I don't know him, but I know his brother, so I know. And his brother was always a very kind, and he's a hardworking individual. So my thing is, how do we, or even the police say, okay, this individual has mental issues, I don't want to put it the wrong way. How do we know whether or not we need to contact that individual, or why won't they, what made us decide not to contact that person's family member, or like, what are the steps that should be doing? Like, if I were to go up to somebody and it's obvious that they have mental situations, and I wanted to, and they asked for money or this or that, how would I go about helping that individual instead of just staying here and go away? I mean, what are the proper steps to do that? Whether you're a police officer or another member walking across, down the street. Because, I mean, to me, I think that regardless of color, regardless of gender, regardless of any of that, whatever you want to call it, shouldn't we be working together as a community anyway to be helping others? There's going to be times where we may need help. Where are they at? So, like I said, how would we go about that? Like, to take the proper steps to helping somebody who we feel that is unstable for whatever reason.
So we do offer quarterly mental health first aid trainings, free for the community, and anyone may come to those. But also I would state that, for one thing, I completely agree, there's a lot of questions there that we cannot answer. But those who are paid to do this stuff owe us an answer on that.
Mm-hmm.
And, gosh, I had a response, I was trying to remember. I'm sure it was brilliant. Go ahead.
As an African American here in Macomb, I just feel like it was easier to put him on that train than it was to escort him home or have a conversation with him and figure out what the real issue was. Period. It was easier to rid him.
Regardless of his safety?
Regardless of his safety, his mental health, his disposition, whatever whatever concern they did not have, it was easier to put him on the train, go back to the station, clock out, and go home to his family. He wasn't concerned about Marshawn's family. And the color of his skin played a big part in that. Trust me.
Would it be appropriate for a community member to contact the Democratic Women of Dunn County? They can help find the right resources, since right now there's nobody else in the community doing that?
Well, and there are plenty of people doing that, but the people who are our feet on the ground, day to day, are our sworn police force, and they are obligated by law to do this. And if they don't know how, we need to ask why. Because being a police chief shouldn't be a get to learn on the job kind of position, And we have an excellent law enforcement program here at WIU. So I can't believe that we don't have ways for them to learn how to do this properly. But we can't take on the burdens of, we will do our best for anybody who approaches us, of course, always. However, we still need to correct the proper functioning, scope, practice, oversight, regulation, and reporting of our police and our other agencies that deal with our marginalized community members, because those areas where vulnerable people can fall through the cracks and be mistreated are problems that are problems for us all. And we urgently must address them.
Let's got one more thing. I just don't think if they had the best training in the world, these officers did. If they don't like black people, they don't like black people. So regardless if they had top-notch training, it does not matter. If they don't like what they see, they abuse their power. And that's just how it is. It's sad but true. And that's just how it is. So they can get the proper training, but if they don't like you because you're brown, They just don't like you, and they're gonna do whatever they can to make you feel that they don't like you.
And this is why, and this is something that many of our members have brought to us, that they feel the same way, and so do I. We urge our leadership of this city to really conduct true implicit bias training, true cultural competency, but also investigate this department and investigate the members who have been hurting people, misusing their power and authority. That is corruption. The fact that the police chief and police officers gave multiple different explanations and changing versions of their actions in this story, that shouldn't happen. That's weird. That doesn't make sense. And that is what we want people to pay attention to. Because when there's a problem, and let me tell you what should have happened. Let's imagine that a white person goes missing in this community. A disabled white person, a mentally disabled white person who lives here and has a family member who is that person's guardian. And that person goes up to a police officer and says, you know, I had an argument with my guardian, and so I just want to leave. Does the Macomb PD say, oh, here's a ticket, wherever you want to go, it's winter, well, you're not dressed well, but good luck? Really? Go ahead.
I would like to know what reason did they give for sending him to Chicago?
Well, somebody,
What did he do?
yeah. Does anybody remember the quote that it is on Channel 7
He
site.
said that he would be fine there, and he would fit in. But another question is
What was he doing for them to come to the conclusion that he would fit in?
he told them that he would be okay there. Marshawn told him that he would be okay there. But if they've been interacting with him before, they know he's mentally not there. Why would you accept that answer? Why wouldn't you call his brother?
That's why I want to know what reason did they give for sending him back.
And they owe us all an explanation.
And
on that.
another thing, though, I think one of the positive benefits of this exposing something that the police has done is good, because none of this is new. And, you know, we don't need to just talk about Michelle.
Right.
Let us talk about the harassment of police against black people, and particularly black men, and stopping them. You know, driving while black is just as common here as it is over this country. And the problem has been, these things have gone on, and there has been almost no support for these individuals and black students. I came to Weston and came to Macomb in '76, and I don't have found anything new. They are doing the same things they always did. They need to train, they search or question black people getting off the train. They don't do that to white people. Right. And see, when you can see the parallels and see the difference in the way they are treated, that becomes, very suspicious. And it leads you easily to indicate see the racism. Because if they're doing it for black people and not doing it for white people, that becomes racist. And so this has been a practice that has been going on for years. And unfortunately, nobody has come to the rescue of black people with regard to these things. And they happen in the schools, it happens on the jobs. It's no different. But maybe with this group, working toward those goals of racial equality, social justice, racial justice, maybe we are at least moving in a direction. But I must say, of my years having been in Macomb, I don't know of any other group that has focused on these inequalities and injustices as the Democratic women. And I think that's the direction we need to be going. And I will say this too, in regard to that resolution that was published. Soon after the issues about what was going on at Western took place, and that sign went up, I went to the mayor, because I know the mayor from other organizations I've worked in, and requested him to do a proclamation. It was before anybody was saying anything in opposition to what had been done. And I said to him, you know, you don't need to say to the community, I feel this person was wrong, but the others are right. We don't need to get into those issues. Because number one, you weren't at Western knowing what was going on, nor was I there. And so we want you to do what other communities and states have done, have come out when they had these kind of racial issues. They've come out with a proclamation from the mayor or the governor. And I know, I think your group even sent copies of a proclamation, a resolution with these people signing it as if all of these are folk who have done things for the for racial justice. I have been very concerned about these recent things that I've been doing, maybe to indicate that we are doing great things in regard to racial justice in Macomb. And let me tell you, it is not true.
I have another question. I don't see in the news report or the clip that I watched, where was he staying that 2 weeks? He was in Chicago.
We still do not know what transpired.
Because they found him in the same clothes, right?
They found him on someone's stoop, in the cold, with frostbitten feet. And if you could see the pictures of the feet,
I saw the pictures of his feet. So is it possible he was just outside?
I think he was, it's likely that he was just outside and probably went from restaurant to restaurant when they were open, but that would explain why he was outside in the elements in the middle of the night when they located him. Or at least by my understanding. The details are still, right, and he is too traumatized to explain what all happened, and it is not safe for anyone to be asking them details. They need to work through that as trauma victims need to.
I'm from Chicago, and I know they reach out to the mentally handicapped, and they help, especially in Union Station. They have security in there.
Yeah.
And I'm positive that they wouldn't allow him to sit outside. They would have offered him a bench inside.
Let's hope.
I know that
at least there was that. Good.
Because when you get off there, you can see the homeless people.
Yeah.
And they let them sleep there.
And to be clear, our issue is not with Chicago or Chicago PD or any of their handling of it. As soon as they were made aware of it, they found him.
They
yep,
got him.
And they're like, and they fed him, and they assured him he was safe. They got a hold of his guardian.
I didn't read about where he was that whole 2 weeks. But I did read he was found in the same clothes, so that's the indication that he was not being cared for.
And those feet are clearly feet that wore the same wet shoes for many, many, many days.
And that's not even like Marshawn. He's a very clean, well-kept man.
Mm-hmm.
Very handsome and kept all the time.
So how should this have happened? I mean, how should this have gone down? We can accept that police officers make mistakes. And maybe this was a new officer who really didn't know him and just went ahead and did that, yeah. But even if that were true or even plausible, which I'm not saying it is in any way plausible, if I'm the leader of a police department and one of my officers puts a disabled man in harm's way, I immediately get the mayor and the city administrator and the city attorney and the city council members in a meeting with the family members to state and figure out where did we go wrong? What happened here? How do we fix this? Let's get to work. We are sorry. Then they should have held a press conference and said, this man is missing. We put him on a train thinking that it was doing him a favor or whatever. We need help finding him. But no, instead there was, oh, you don't need to make a report. I'm wondering, what did they think would happen? When they realized they made that mistake, did they just think his brother would be like, oh, well, I used to have a brother, I guess he's gone? Or were they hoping he would just never be found and then they would never get caught for what they did? Did they show any concern about his health then or since? No. And what should have happened was the mayor should have been holding a press conference with people here, and they should have explained all the things they're going to do to make sure this never happens again. But instead, the mayor grew wind of the fact that we were investigating, and he held that little statement signing with the people he invited, near as we can tell last minute, leaving out most members of the black community, leaving out all our members, leaving out all the people who have said they want us to work on this stuff. Those types of optics, we're not even sure that the mayor actually revealed to everyone who signed that. Like, I would love if everyone who signed that, if they were asked if they knew who wrote it and under what conditions, because Dr. S.E. Rutledge first started asking for a proclamation last summer, and so did our org and our racial justice committee members and all the people at Mount Calvary after those signs went out, and the mayor said that he would talk about it. Why were none of them here? Why wasn't there any clergy from the black church here? Why were there no black clergy at all invited? And did those people have a say in that? And if they did, that's great, but they didn't state who wrote it. But I can tell you it's none of the black people we know. None of our members were informed. And then some of our members who are working in other orgs on racial justice things confirmed they weren't told either. We think the mayor picked his people, and then some who are good-hearted and forthright and have high integrity and wish to do right, invited them to that signing, excluded Tammy Lee Brown Edwards, the only city councilwoman who has been a part of all of these issues, leaving her voice out of the discussion and her visage out of the room, and putting just one community member who apparently is a representative of all black community members, but he does not represent our org or our members. Our members do not agree with that with the way that went down at all. That is not a proper proclamation. It wasn't done the proper way. It didn't involve all the marginalized voices. It didn't ask them, what should it say? It should be our black, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, international community members saying what this community should say in that proclamation. Why wasn't that done? I mean, I know we've had all these nonviolent conversations, but when do we start getting to the real actions here that would have prevented this trauma to this family? And that's why we're done. We're going after those actions now. We can't wait. People are in harm's way and have been harmed, and apparently our city doesn't care.
So according to the police chief's statement on the news yesterday, and this is evidently a statement that has changed a couple times, but he said that that Macomb did not have the resources to provide for this man, and therefore they were looking for a place to send him that had the resources that could accommodate him. And so my first question would be, well, if Macomb doesn't have those resources, why does it not have those resources? And what should be done to ensure that Macomb does have resources so we're not being forced to ship people's family members 4 hours away to get the care that they need? But secondly, what resources were supposedly found for this man in Chicago? What communities, what agencies was he put in contact with? And if he was put in contact with those agencies, then how was it that he ended up on the streets prospecting. And I know that we don't have those answers right now, and so I would encourage the police department to provide those answers pretty quickly.
It's on them also to provide the proof, because if they state that they were looking for other resources for him, he has resources in this community in the form of a guardian, and in people who care about him and take care of him. So, yeah, go ahead.
I just have two things. The first question is Tamar not here because in fear of retaliation? Is that why he's not here today? That's one question. And then the other thing is,
That's okay.
but yeah, but is he not here because of fear of retaliation? Because I would think he would want to be here.
He is watching.
Okay.
I talked to him this morning about it. We texted back and forth. And as a trauma survivor, as you know, retellings of your trauma are very destabilizing. They're re-traumatizing. And he and I and some of our members who have some training in that worked with him about whether or not he felt he could be here with us today. And we left it up to him to decide whether or not to come.
And I remember another thing, is the police department unaware of the men's shelter that's next to the fire department?
That's a good question.
I want to know.
Apparently so.
Oh, okay. Because it's located next to the fire department.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting that they would just neglect to mention that
Less
the
than
one
a
right
block
across
from
the
the police
street. Yeah.
department. So there is a men's shelter for adult men there.
With openings.
With openings.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, were they not aware that they could have taken him there?
And if they're not aware, shame on them. And
Well, they
shame on
know
their
now.
leadership, right?
There's a shelter
Yeah,
here.
there's a shelter here that he could have gone to.
And
But,
there's also Genesis Garden.
yeah, that brings up one more issue though that we have found.
There's a Samaritan well, what is it called? The shelter?
Well, the
Samaritan.
next shelter is Samaritan.
It's
Well.
Samaritan Well. And there's another one, Genesis Garden for Families. So
Right.
there are resources for people who don't have places to go, or homeless people or families.
So for them to claim we don't have resources and they need to send a disabled, traumatized black man out of this community for other resources, they better prove what resources they intended to connect him with and why that failed.
I was just gonna ask.
That was what I was saying. I was like, did they not even get in contact with any? Because last I knew, there were openings in the shelters here. But on the news, it said not even Quincy had anything for him.
Which isn't true.
Even if so, the police station is there and open with heat and coffee or whatever he may have needed to stay warm for that day.
And even blessed, they would have taken him in the mental ward. And that's why I just want to know what.
Our local hospital would have taken him.
That's right, for an evaluation.
Exactly.
They don't have
And
a
stabilization.
psychiatric ward for adolescents or children, but they do for adults. So they definitely would have taken him.
closed that.
But they will make sure he will get
Where he
to
needs to
somewhere
be.
that has.
Yeah, the abandonment of care is
But he
egregious
should have been evaluated.
and
Yes.
completely unacceptable. And they had a legal obligation to protect him from harm and to make sure that he was cared for, and they've completely failed in all of it. Go ahead, Becky.
I was just gonna say, first responders are trained. They are trained to assess mental health conditions at that time. They are trained to know this person needs to be assessed by the emergency department, or this person needs first aid, or this person that is the big basis of their first training, is assessing these situations. So to just ship them out without taking him to a doctor, taking him to the hospital, using Samaritan Well, or God forbid his caretaker, it blows my mind. I'm sorry.
And I think there is a strong need to really find out why did they, in the first place, give him a ticket. Oh, we know that is despicable what has happened, but we need to know what happened that led them to give him this one-way ticket.
They're fed up.
Because the fact that we don't know means that we don't know that any people are safe.
Because he's always had encounters with the police department. So basically, they're tired of him.
Yeah, that's
Because
what I was
even at my
wondering.
job, managers that don't like him or want to be bothered with him, they call the cops on him.
Oh,
But if I'm there, I'm gonna take him home, or I'm gonna call his brother to come get him. I'm not gonna call the cops on him because he's asking for refills of coffee.
Oh, for crying out
Why
loud.
is he irritating you by being in the building? A lot of my managers are irritated by his presence.
So like some protocols should be developed or something.
Right. Well, and also, our community needs to have a discussion about what we owe our human family here, right? Because any one of us could suffer a stroke, a traumatic brain injury, an assault, a brain tumor, things that would affect our cognitive functioning. Does that mean that we should be cast aside and told, well, we don't have the resources for you, so here's your ticket, good luck? That on its face is abhorrent and completely unacceptable.
That's kind of my concern, you know, I have CPTSD. What if I'm out and I get triggered and I'm disoriented and I'm, you know, back as a child and don't know where I'm at or whatever? What if I'm approached? What happens then?
Do we really believe that if he had been white, this would have gone down the same way that it has gone down for this family?
No.
Is it safe to say that I don't want to be a resident in Macomb anymore and I can go to the mayor and tell him to pay the expenses for me to move to where I would like to be? I'm just saying, can I do that? Because I don't want to be here. I can irritate them so they can move me.
There you go. If they're offering free tickets for black people, they should put that on the city
And then
website.
you may get to the next place. And
Me and my 4 children, they need to move all of us.
It's
And
not
my
gonna
car,
be
Rita.
that different.
That's right.
Rita goes too. She's my car, so they need to pay for all of that.
There you go. So, go ahead.
How likely do you think it is that there will be some sort of investigation from the Illinois State's Attorney?
Well, at this point, you know, our police chief, our mayor, our city leadership has completely embargoed this story. They've tried to get out ahead of it to tell their narrative that it's no big deal and oh well, it's their fault. They should have communicated better. I can't answer that question, but I will tell you what. I will commit that we will keep on telling these stories until either those people do better or they leave. Because they need to go. Every one of them who harmed this man and his family needs to go. They need to be held accountable first. We need a truth-telling on this entire thing. We do not have the resources in our org to properly investigate all of the problems that have come to light as a part of this. We need help from afar because we cannot trust our police department to even keep their stories straight when they're explaining themselves. That is very worrisome. You know, normally you're going to make a mistake once in a while, you might misspeak, but then you correct the record. But if you change your story based on who's talking to you and you're a public official, that's a sign something is not right. And something is not right with our city leadership and with our police chief. And I'll reiterate, we don't believe the chief has any more chances. He needs to go now. He doesn't get to stay. He has failed in leadership. He has failed in oversight. He has failed in compassion. He has failed in integrity. And he has failed in transparency. Those are too many failures to let a man with a history like he has had, stating that he is okay with enforcing black culture, or white culture here, I'm sorry, at the expense of black people. A man who has admitted that he doesn't really care about the gay community either. A man who has been not forthcoming to our journalist. Excuse me, if you're a public servant, who does our chief think he is not having to answer all questions coming from the public? He's our chief. If he can't answer those questions, he needs to be removed. And we need better people in leadership now. The next thing that happens in this community against black people is on the city. We have now brought this to light. If they want to sue for anything else that happens, we will help connect them to a class action lawyer. At this point, they refuse to do anything. It is on all of them and all of us as taxpayers. So we will have resources on our website. We're going to be working on that, and we'll be having more of these discussions. And I really hope you all come out for our town hall. Go ahead, Essie.
You want to remember that the chief's position is a non-partisan position. It is one of which know, it's not just the chief, if you're gonna talk about this. The chief is going to do what his boss, you know, suggests that he does.
Which is the mayor, right?
Which is the mayor. The mayor appointed the chief,
And the mayor's position is elected.
and the mayor's position is elected. So what actions can community members upset about this take? Share our information, okay? Tell us your stories. Share our stuff on social media. Call your city council person and demand answers. And demand the chief step down. And demand the mayor explain his failures of leadership. And then we need good people to run.
And you need to also urge the black community here in Macomb to show up and show out. Like, we cannot be heard. I just heard of your group last week. It hasn't even been a week. And here I am. I didn't know that it was other people. Tuesday. I was told about your group on Tuesday. So I didn't know that it was people opposite color of me that were willing to stand up for me and listen to me and come together and actually try to do something about it. I've been tortured here for 4.5 years. Period. And it's just like torture, period. But if other people don't stand up and come out and share their stories, how is anybody gonna know? But that's okay, that's where I come in. Because I'm gonna pull some of my black friends, girls, boys, men and women, so they can share their stories.
And if any of them do that, oh, sorry.
Something has to happen. Change has to happen.
Thank you.
I'm definitely ready to leave here, but I'm not gonna leave here until I'm heard.
Good for you. And we're gonna do our part. The Democratic Women of McDonough County isn't even a year old yet. Right away, we decided that our moral North Star would be allyship first. And what a strange journey that has led us on. And then we challenge each other as white members to begin learning about our own internalized white supremacy and our own thinking structures that contribute to a culture of harm, which causes disrespect, danger, and diminishes the quality of life and the opportunities for our black community members, our Hispanic, our gay, our Latin members, our Native American. And this has been going on without most of us being aware of it because we had a lot of very white social circles. And so our org prioritized trying to do better as white people. So if there are any black community members who want to be heard, we would like to make an offer that we will read your affidavits if you are too frightened. We will have our white allies read those. Because we need white people in this community to do better. And we think if they actually heard what you all have been through, what our members are bringing to us, they would be just as outraged as we have been. Let us not anymore fall for comfortable white people assuring us all is well, and that our leaders' determination is enough. Determination only gets you so far. You need integrity, you need transparency, you need oversight, you need regulation, and you need organizations to hold power accountable.
Yes.
Action. And we are here for it. Thank you all very much for being here.